What is up, everyone? Welcome, gamers, creatives, and friends, to another Let's Chat by Epic Games. Our goal here of these streams is simply to go deeper into topics surrounding Fortnite, Creative, and the future of UEFN. So let's dive in and learn who we have the privilege of speaking to in this stream. How we doing, everybody? I've got a question for each of you that I'd love you to answer right out of the gate. Who are you? What do you do at Epic Games? And what is a Fortnite Creative device or feature that needs just a little bit more love? Sax, why don't you go first?
So I'm Sax. I I look after the Fortnite ecosystem at large. So UEFN and like all the things we do with creator relations, creator economy, discover, like sort of anything and everything people could be super excited or super upset over. So I'm the I'm the one person that keeps coming back to these. So I can I can answer your hopefully insightful questions. What was the other thing you said? You said, "Who am
What is
I?"
like a
Oh yeah,
device
like
or like a
device.
creative
I think
feature that
NPC.
needs a little?
I think NPC spawner. I think in general, we're not happy with how flexible it is. We're not happy with like the choices you have. We're not happy with sort of the ability to to really make like these characters your own and make like deep, insightful characters that can make like unique experiences. So
Mm.
the LLM device that we showed at on Fest is a nice step like in that direction that we're prototyping. We're still prototyping with right now, and hopefully it'll go out in a not too distant future into experimental.
Love that. Joey.
Yeah. Hey everyone. I'm Joey. I lead the Discover team, but among other things, I also touch a bunch of quests, XP, matchmaking, basically a lot of the different systems that all of our different products, first party or third party, rely on to get players into game and then get them like engaging and having a great time. Um, and a lot of you have seen me at the different Unreal Fest Discover talks, and so you know, SquatingDog, it's great to see you. Glad to see a friendly face. Um, a device or feature that I think could use some love. Well, I'll leave Paul one of the Discover focused ones, but the matchmaking portal in game, I think is one that could use a lot of help. It's something that we've been talking about a lot on the matchmaking side. I think there's some really cool unlocks that we could get by like actually sort of bridging players between islands more effectively. It solved a lot of problems for us on like the memory constraint side as well, and so I think there could be some really cool things there, and just in the way that we kind of bring players between experiences.
It's great. And then we have a new face here, Paul. I'd love to hear who you are and what you do at Epic and a creative device that you think could use a little bit of love.
Yeah, hey folks. Super excited to be here. I work on personalization and search and genre classification, kind of a handful of the technical systems that support Discover. Joey said he was going to leave me some of the other features and then took the one that I had in mind. But immediately next up is going to be personalization. I think it's just we made a lot of like really cool progress there in recent months and over the last year. But I think it is just there's so much cool potential to serve different niches of players, different niches of content across the ever-growing ecosystem. So that's kind of top of mind for me.
That's great. Nice to meet you guys. Well, I've met most of you except for Paul, so good to have you guys all here. Thank you for having me. My name is Jeremy Padron. I'm a content creator, also the lead game designer and creative head at Jogo Games. And the creative device, I think, Sax, you took mine. I think like if we could just make the NPC device just a little bit more stronger, I think we will see a lot more like different types of games that I would love to see in the ecosystem. Well, today we're talking about Discover. Discover can be kind of one of those buzzwords in the creative community that it could be good or bad. And I want to try my best to ask questions on behalf of our community, both big and large. I DM'd over 80 different creators of different sizes and kind of fielded a bunch of questions and also came up with some for myself, but things that I would find interesting for people that are watching at home. So hopefully you guys will indulge me in taken a stab at a few of these things. And these talks in general are a really great way for us to have conversation with you guys at Epic. So thank you so much for doing these. It's really valuable to our community. And also, with that being said, in the same breath, I did want to throw out an education piece that people out there may not be privy to. There are 2 documents that Epic has released. One, how discovery works. Essentially, this is a spreadsheet of how discovery works, like every tab, every piece of it. And there's also an Epic Picks changes, which there's a big change that has happened with Epic Picks. It's been kind of controversial inside of the community. We'll address that later on in this stream. But both of those documents are available to you. So if you guys don't know about that, if you were like me, where I'm like, I didn't know that you guys released this publicly, that's available to you. And I think that's really important for you to check out, as it helps kind of deal with maybe things that you might not, you might assume a way that discovery works, but then now you actually have a clear understanding. So be sure to check those out. Sax, is there anything else along those lines of those 2 documents that you feel like would be important for content creators or creatives out there to know about outside of those 2 documents?
No, I don't remember if the talks from Unveil Fest, did they get posted? Do you remember that, Joey? I think we're still working on getting them posted.
Yeah, I think generally it depends. Some of them are posted.
Yeah,
I think ours was live streamed, which might be out already.
Okay. Regardless, I think this is a great opportunity to go deeper on whatever people want to go deep on. I think our goal is to be as transparent as possible. I always say that we're working towards publishing every algorithm that we use, because we really there's no built-in advantage for us to sort of keep any of that secret. Like, if we feel like we can sort of contain the bad actor and sort of the attack vectors, outside of that, no, like we want people to understand like how it is that we put things in Discover. I think the biggest thing for us is like our headline is connect players with content. That's it. Like, connect players with content they love. Like, give them the next piece of content that they're gonna fall in love with. Like the next game, the next island, the next whatever. Like it's really important to us, because that's how people come back. They come back because they play something they love. I think the goal of Discover is certainly not to favor anyone. It is to look like, be player centric. Everybody has a personalized experience for exactly what they would want at this time. Like, this is the piece of content that they needed in their life, they just didn't know it. And we obsessively try to refine how we do that. I think I spend more time on any other on Discover than any other part of the ecosystem, because it really is important. It's like the last mile of connecting players to content. And there's no substitute for being excellent there. We have a long way to go, as Paul was saying. I think nobody beats themselves up more than we do internally. So if you feel like you're being hard on us, much worse internally. I
think that's true of probably every creative in the space, right? Like, we'll take forever to release something because we can always perfect on it or make it better.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I would love to start us off with our first question of what you guys think are the biggest problems currently with Discover. Obviously, I think us at home might have our own opinions, but I'm curious of what Epic Games thinks is kind of our biggest problems with Discovery right now.
I'm happy to jump in. I have a laundry list of problems. I'll try to go somewhat quickly through them. But yeah, just to say up front, I don't believe Discover is perfect by any means. I think that there's a lot of ways that we can improve it. It's just about picking which kind of lanes we want to focus on at any given time. One of our biggest challenges continues to be scale. We get so many islands published into our ecosystem every day. We're at the point where it's anywhere between 2,000 and 5,000 different updates or new islands in the ecosystem in a given day or week. And it's just really challenging for us to build in a kind of algorithmic understanding of all of that content, because going through it manually just isn't feasible. And with the scale that we aspire to shoot for, it's also not reasonable for us to try to set up any type of manual reviews. I mean, we have moderation, but I mean, on the discovery side, it's really hard for us to play test 5,000 different islands. And so we need systems in place that give us a better understanding of what content we think will be successful with what players. And I think we try to look at all content within that really positive light of just everything has has a spot. Like everything can be good, everything can be good for a specific audience, and it's just about, kind of like Zach said, pairing that content with those players in a way, pretty like ideally, quickly, effectively, like first and foremost the thing that they are seeing and discover. So scale is always going to be one of the things that we come back to. It's just one of our challenges. I think you mentioned it kind of earlier, like we also want to have some amount of editorial as well, and figuring out how we kind of go through that process. There's a lot of cleanup that we want to do there, but we want to make sure that we're really surfacing this, like the most boundary pushing, the most exciting content we can find and discover, and that we're using sort of our editorial spaces for doing that. I think there's a lot of room for us to improve on like categorization, tagging, some of the automated stuff that we're doing. And in general, I think one of our biggest challenges is like we're trying to grow the ecosystem. We're trying to grow the different types of content we have available for players. A lot of our audience is still very BR shooter focused, and we're slowly trying to shift that perspective and that sort of like brand image so that Fortnite feels like an ecosystem. But it's challenging, and it's really challenging to get people who are brand new to this to come into Fortnite and not just think about the shooter side of it, and really focus on the variety and all of the other like cool, fun, custom things that you can do. And so I think that will, as a kind of overarching kind of macro challenge, be one that we just continue to chip away at, as we sort of establish ourselves as a larger ecosystem that isn't just battle royale.
I think to say something like, why don't we just lean in and say, well, I guess Fortnite is shooters and we should just recommend shooters. Well, because we also see that when players discover like the full breadth of content, like they stay, like they come back more. Like this is like it becomes the place that you come back to see. So it's super important that we surface these things. Super important people get to see the breadth of what's being offered, because that is what makes people come back and sort of fall in love with Fortnite. So it's not just a like it would be nice to see for us. It really is important, like for players to find their place in Fortnite, that they get to see a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think like one question that is kind of at the forefront of my mind when it comes to that in particular is, do you guys feel like that is a Epic Games as a whole mentality, that we're kind of stuck in this shooter genre and that we need to break out of it? Or is this kind of more underneath our problem because we deal with it more hands-on while we're building these experiences? I build this first-person game, with NPCs, and it's just story-driven and it doesn't get anywhere. I want that to succeed, and there might be an audience for that, but the greater audience doesn't know that they can come into Fortnite and play that game. Do you feel like that's a shared understanding at Epic Games, or is that kind of just essentially just our problem that we see that we have to kind of push Epic Games at large to understand?
It's a shared understanding. Yeah,
Yeah.
like absolutely. I think it's I don't know, it's shared frustration also that it's really difficult to tell people that Fortnite is not what they thought they were, like what they thought it is,
Yeah.
right? Like there's way more. Like generally, that's like the worst marketing speak. Like when you say, "But wait, there's more." Like it's not exactly what people want to hear in that moment. So I think
Yeah.
we've struggled with how to do platform, like for lack of a better word, platform marketing for Fortnite versus games marketing, right? The
Yeah.
games marketing by necessity is season based, and it's sort of IP based or content based or whatever. Like it has like a certain cadence to it, that everybody understands is sort of traditional games marketing, but the platform marketing is very is different. So I think we're taking another like serious run at it this like leading into this holiday on focusing on platform marketing, that Fortnite is where you go and find and then basically everything. Um because we have the same like I don't know, like in a scan this morning, I think about somewhere between 40 and 50% of all playtime is in third-party content, in creator content. Like so the people that are there clearly love it. Or like that's how they're spending their time. Like why can't we figure out how to tell that story in some interesting way? So that's what we're trying again. With
Cool.
renewed energy for this holiday. So it's not your problem per se, it's as much our problem. That we just haven't found a way to tell that story effectively.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good context, I think. I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into a controversial element, which is XP. XP can be utilized as a tool to help like guide people to different maps. I know like in Discovery, if a player goes into an experience and there isn't good XP, they can easily leave that experience, which kind of thwarts the entire game itself. We have gone back and forth historically about having just a unified XP system and then having one that we can tailor to our experience that makes sense to benchmarks that happen in the game. But then also bad actors can come in and essentially utilize that tool to just give maybe players that are looking for XP period just grant that to them. Do you guys have any thoughts on, or are you guys settled on how XP is acting inside of its utilization in Discovery and me being able to get one of my games out there? Do you see any problems with it, or are you guys satisfied with how it is in its current state?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to give at least a part of the answer, and I don't want to speak for the whole. There's a whole separate quests and XP team too, and they spend a lot of time thinking about this. Like, I don't think we feel that XP is perfect by any means. A lot of our investment for the past 6 to 12 months at this point has really just been in XP infrastructure. As you all probably noticed, we made a bunch of XP changes, and then a bunch of kind of bad actors were able to find different edge cases and find abuse vectors or whatever in ways that maybe we weren't super happy about. And a lot of that comes back to the infrastructure that we had set up for XP was very much built for one game first, and then we tried to kind of copy and paste it to other things, and a lot of the sort of rubber bands and duct tape fell off in the middle somewhere, and it just resulted in a system that was constantly falling over. I'm not able to report on like outliers, not able to actually identify us when things were being taken advantage of, and so that's been where a lot of our investment has been. From my perspective, I think that XP is still a really powerful tool for like game designers in the ecosystem. I think if you play an experience with just a flat rate XP, the experience can feel very flat versus when you are actually taking meaningful actions and then you get XP rewards kind of based on those actions. I think that's a really powerful reinforcement tool for like, oh, this game is fun. I'm liking what I'm doing. I want to keep coming back to this. And so I don't want to take that away from creators just because I do think it's really powerful. And it's just about finding the right balance. I know that like calibration has come up a bunch in the past as well. Even while we're calibrating, we do still like have XP at like some flat rate, and then you kind of move into the calibrated version based on the different accolades and everything else you've gotten set up in your island. So I think it's not perfect. I think we want to clean up our infrastructure and monitoring first and get us kind of sort of like a good foundation. And then I think we can start really tackling like, okay, what's the right way to allow creators to kind of build for their experience?
Yeah,
And just
guiding
a
principle is that the creators should have the same ability to use XP in exciting ways that we do when we make
Right.
back now or whatever. Um, and like the truth is that the XP exploits or whatever, like as a percentage of the total XP granted is like a tiny percentage. Um, and again, the good actors that use it like in a way that it was intended, meaning as part of a reward for doing particular things in a game that's game related and sort of within the design is like the vast majority. Um, Outside of that, like your calibration that Joey mentioned, we used to have a very small amount of islands that were calibrated. I think we had 90+% of all playtime is on islands that are calibrated in creator made content. So it's not like it's not like it used to be. Like it's a lot more distributed, like where XP is earned, I guess is what I'm saying. So like I think we can do much better on just giving better tools for like rather than the accolades where it's kind of up and down. I've been talking a lot to creators about like how frustrating it is that you can't talk about like if you do a stream of something, the amount of XP you get as you're playing through varies by player. Well, that makes it feel like random almost. Like there's a method to the madness from our perspective, or from a player perspective, it's the like it would be really nice if it was similar to achievements that you would get a certain amount of reward for doing a particular task. They would be consistent. We just haven't found a good way to do that without letting in like huge exploit vectors.
I think as a player who wants to explore new things and a creator who has an experience that doesn't have any players, it's an interesting tension point, right? Because then their XP isn't calibrated. The player goes into the experience, doesn't feel like they get much benefit, and it kind of like thwarts these smaller experiences from potentially growing on itself. I think that's the only pushback that I have in mind of like, is there a way to kind of like raise the bottom level so that maybe calibration like isn't necessary to a player just having a good time and a new experience and getting rewarded for doing so?
Yeah, I think that's super reasonable. I think I'm happy to go back and talk with the team more about it too. The other thing, just on the investing in infrastructure side, I think the current version where you go play an experience and then sort of you leave and at some point later you get granted the XP from playing that like 15 minutes ago, like really doesn't work. I don't think anyone
No,
here is
yeah.
like, oh yeah, that's perfect. Like I think that is such a delayed thing that like you don't even know why you're getting the XP. At that point, you've totally forgotten what even you played. Like and so I think like that needs to be resolved, and we should be like it should feel like you are actively earning XP in an experience, even if it's not calibrated. And the way that we do that is by having better like infrastructure and XP systems in place so that we can grant that more immediately. And so that's on us to improve, and it's something that we're trying to do, in the
I think
coming
we
months,
swung
basically.
like I wanted to say this, we swung way too far towards protecting against the downside of exploits versus
Yeah.
like the game design, like sort of awesomeness that is from how XP works in progressing through like sort of across the whole ecosystem, regardless of what content you play. So yes, it's a good push that like we haven't landed in a good place yet.
Cool. Well, thank you for answering that. And I want to transition us to kind of like the search functionality problems of Discover. I got a lot of feedback when talking about this, and the biggest feedback I think is, and how I'll formalize this question is like, why was search designed to be so exact and not like fuzzy search? And for those that are at home that don't know what fuzzy search is like my name SquatingDog is misspelt intentionally so that I could get a bunch of different like socials. But if you were to search SquatingDog as it's formally spelt with two T's, you would not find any of my experiences in its current system. My curiosity is like, why wasn't fuzzy search integrated in the onset of creating this search functionality, and how can we serve the player to finding the experience that they actually want by using search as a tool? Yeah, like any thoughts along those lines would be
Yeah,
great.
Paul, why is that? So
Yeah.
Sax, I'm so glad you asked. We we've put a bunch of work into search recently to kind of support new functionality within it. So this includes like core search functionality, like semantic search or creator search, things of that nature, as well as a variety of new inputs that allow us to configure like how we do the actual sorting of results, right? And in general, we're building search to be more configurable and more dynamic so that we can accommodate a wider range of search use cases, right? Like search should be more than just exact match. I know exactly what I'm looking for. I promise to spell it correctly, and I'm going to get back kind of a pretty strict set of results. There are folks who do that, absolutely. There are also folks who use it as an exploration path, right? And adding in that additional functionality allows us to kind of tune that over time and see what works, see how the best mix of accommodating those different paths to see what that looks like. Additionally, I would say that like we want to be able to like test search over time more, which is something that we'll be doing. So as we've like worked to push out these changes, we'll be making sure that like it's continuing to head in the right direction, which is functionality that we haven't had prior. So I would expect, changes on the way and hopefully some improvement to go along with them.
And
Yeah.
if you don't mind me asking, like, is there a time frame that we could expect those changes? I just got to ask. Everyone's thinking it. I just got to ask.
Yeah. So like on the other hand, like folks are pretty used to the way that it works now, for better or worse, and we don't want to like immediately just like change all of it all at once, and all of a sudden like my path to finding specific content is no longer there, and that creates some tension with the player base, right? So while like we've built out some additional functionality, there's still plenty on the way. We'll probably increment our way towards the total end goal or end state. So I don't have an exact timeline because that shifts depending on like what specific thing we're discussing, but it's an area that we're prioritizing actively.
Awesome. Another curiosity a lot of creators had was like, how do you guys determine like a specifically made or trending discovery category? So like I use the word trending, it's not always trending, but like an example would be like when Only Up popped off, there was an Only Up uh platform or like tab for everything Only Up related. Same with farming, you know, the grow a garden vibes like had its own little tab. How do you guys decide that? Like what is, and then what is the advantage of having those? And yeah, what does that look like on Epic's side?
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of intro, and Paul, I'm interested in your thoughts too. Like, um, I think it's funny. Like, we try to stay really plugged into the ecosystem and kind of keep a monitor on like what content is new and like, oh, we're starting to see some, you know, this type of game show up more consistently. And I think that basically that signal turns into these types of games are finding success. Maybe there's only a few of them in the ecosystem. They don't fall cleanly into our existing categories or buckets. Um, and it feels like if someone were to kind of like want to play more of that type of game, they wouldn't really know where to go. And I think once we find ourselves in a situation like that, we're like, okay, what we could do very short term is we can come up with some criteria that could at least allow us to identify these types of games, and that always like isn't always possible either. But in the example of like, you know, Only Up type games, we actually looked at like basically the axis, like how far up and down players were traveling vertically in the game, and that was how we identified games that were like Only Up type games or whatever. And you know, and we've done basically similar things for roguelikes and farming and whatever other genres. And a lot of that is like, let's introduce this as a row. Let's like create a space for creators who want to build this type of experience to feel like, oh, this is where I would fit into. And then at some point we reach like a critical mass of content where we can actually start algorithmically identifying it with like ML models and sort of categorization. And then it becomes a lot easier to support and sort of scale into the rest of the ecosystem. But some of the issue is like, oh, there's only like two of these types of games right now. Well, we can't just have a row with only two games in them. So like we need a little bit of a minimum threshold. We need to be able to identify it based on the data from like players in the game, because we can't just sort of editorially pick them unless it's, you know, for Epic's picks or whatever. And so it's a little bit of like a not super structured process, but it is based on kind of like our constant monitoring of the ecosystem and what's changing and how we can sort of lift up some of the new kind of green sprouts that we're seeing, and give them a space to maybe find some more success.
A curiosity I have of that is like if I'm a creator that's trying to identify one of those rows to create an experience on. So let's just say there's the farming or the new what's that catch a meme. I
Steal a brain
forget the
rot.
name. Yeah, there you go. Steal a brain rot. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that those are going really hard right now, you know, and I see a row that surfaces like if I'm building my experience towards that, and then I don't know what rows are kind of in and which ones are out, do you guys have any idea of how you could communicate that shuffling? Because I do think from a player's experience, it's really random when you scroll down and you're just
Right.
like, all of these random categories pop up, and it could be different for others. I'm not sure, but ultimately, how do we communicate that to creators so that they can plan efficiently for maybe a row that they're trying to target, and then how do we clean it up to a player that's just death scrolling? Those are two curiosities I have.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. It's not something that we've been able to be super transparent about. I think now that we have this kind of new discovered documentation, like that could be a place for it, but also I don't think everyone is monitoring that document, like looking for every single word change every time it's submitted either. So like there's probably a process there that doesn't exist today where we could say, hey, like we've added some of these rows, we've also removed some of these rows, and we could do that at some cadence. Because I think like realistically, we're probably not adding and removing a row every week necessarily. Like we want to give that content a little bit of time to like breathe, and creators a little bit of time to like actually make it. And so I think there's some room for us to just try to find ways to communicate that better. And then we would probably just push out some messaging on socials, but leaning on the documentation as the place that's like, this is still the source of truth. This would still at least articulate how the row is being defined, what you need to qualify for it, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's great. That's good feedback.
And I think
I've got a question from Jaden around search, and he asked, like, can we have more information on search terms surfaced to creators? I would love to know what players are looking for and build games that might fill in those gaps. Is that a tool that could become available to us as creators?
It's a really good idea. I hadn't thought of that. We look at them, but we look at the word cloud for what's being searched for. And I don't. Yeah, we should go back and look at that. I don't see any immediate reasons why we couldn't show that word cloud basically. Um, like as it evolves because it changes over time. Um, but that's a really interesting thing. Like just to have a sense for what players are actually interested in. Yeah.
It'd be really cool to know those things of like how people are searching so that we can utilize that information for ourselves as creators.
You search a lot for 1v1, 2v2, and 3v3.
Yeah, yeah,
There's a lot
exactly.
of that.
Well, I would say quickly that like it is probably far more diverse than most people expect. Like there
Mm,
is a massive, massive tail
Yeah.
to different search terms over time that contribute like a huge amount of not just like searches, but like content found in search through these like this crazy amount of varied search terms. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. It'd be an interesting thing to explore.
Like Paul, I think we looked up data wise, and it was uh, the top 50% of search volume. There are like at 450 different terms, and then it goes on basically to like infinity for the bottom 50% of search volume. And so there's
Yeah.
just a lot of like, it's not, I mean, certainly there are top terms, but it is not super concentrated in like 10 search terms that everyone's looking for right now type of thing. It's like there's 500 of them that make up sort of like that top 50% bucket.
that's really interesting. Yeah, like now I want to go into your guys' Epic servers and look at all of that for sure. Okay, so another topic of controversy is your guys' new thumbnail system. I think it's worth mentioning and talking about. There's a lot of feedback on how helpful it could be as a tool versus how frustrating it is to be prevented from using thumbnails that you've had for a long period of time. So I was curious if you guys could just spell out a little bit of like how the system works, and then how you guys kind of intend to prevent bad actors from stealing from creators, and then how it knows who is quote unquote first, and then what process a creator would go through if they feel like they were unfairly moderated for themselves.
Yeah, I can try to take a stab at this. I may have mentioned it at the beginning, but this like feature touches a bunch of different teams. So it's Discover related, obviously, because Discover is the one that's surfacing the content, but also it touches moderation, trust and safety, and a lot of other teams, even Creator Portal, right? And so I will do my best to kind of like give the high level, but I don't want to always speak for other teams as best I can. In general, like I think the high level goal was we see a lot of duplicative content across the ecosystem, and we wanted to try to find ways to cut down on that and make sure that creators felt like they could really like publish and sort of establish themselves within the ecosystems. And I think that was like good goal. Like we feel good about that, but I think we recognize that there are some painful edge cases still. And we've been trying to work with creators when that has come up. And I think the reality is like we kind of oriented towards getting something out quickly here because we felt like it was fairly painful in the ecosystem rather than building the sort of foolproof version of this and sitting on it for another 6 months before we shipped it. And I think that just comes with some trade-offs, and some of that is like a little bit of the pain that we're kind of dealing with now. And so I think that is understood. I don't think anyone on our team, like we've been talking about it all week. We've been sort of discussing whether we want to make any sort of changes to the policy, or just fixes to the way that we're flagging. We've already found a bunch of different like small bugs or issues that we've corrected kind of over the past week or two. A lot of that is thanks to creators like you all surfacing that stuff to us. So like definitely please keep calling stuff out if it doesn't feel correct. But I think there's probably some like more to come from us there around like if we're going to make any changes and what those changes will be. So I don't want to speak too much just in terms of like how it works right now. The general functionality that we're going for is that like if you are the first person to publish a thumbnail, like that should be the thumbnail that you're able to kind of continue to publish that thumbnail, and other creators shouldn't be able to copy it from you and publish over top of that. The specific tuning and levers around that in terms of okay, well, how similar and like how do we detect that, I think is what we're kind of trying to really like solidify right now, because I think that's where people are falling into the painful parts of they're being blocked, or they're seeing like the notification in Creator Portal and they're saying, oh no, I have to change everything, and then I totally understand that that's very frustrating.
And so just to follow up on that last part of the question, I know I gave you way too many at the onslaught there, but like
Sorry.
if I have that if it's happened to me and I feel like that's a false like reporting, what would you say would be my process to be able to get that like taken care of?
Yeah. I mean, certainly, I think we want folks to reach out to creator relations and creator success in those specific cases. And I know that not everyone or not all creators necessarily have that relationship. And so I think it's on us to figure out how do we create ways that you can sort of surface any discrepancies, or like those kind of blocked points if you don't already have that sort of established kind of communication line. But we have things like Discord that we're monitoring. Like I think we constantly are looking at the forums. I get tagged on forum posts basically every day at this point, from different people internally just saying, hey, this is a Discover related forum post. Is this something that we're working on? Is this something that we're thinking about? So we're certainly monitoring all of the different sort of social like posts and things that are being sent to us, and that stuff is getting seen. And so I would hope that you don't feel like you're just being totally unheard if you're actually kind of taking the step for trying to write up and just saying, hey, like I wasn't trying to copy anything. This is what I'm doing. This is the issue I'm having. Like we can totally try to kind of root cause and triage that.
Right. I'll just spam Sax's email in chat
That
so
too.
everybody
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
that. Probably be
Yes.
the easiest way there.
But yeah, like to Joey's point, like Discord forums, or like directly with creator relations, like all three are great. The least efficient one is Twitter, or X. Like, it's just more difficult for us to make the connection. Like on if you're on the forums, you're on Discord, we can directly make the connection, even if you don't have an established relationship. Our goal, our goal is pretty simple. It's to weed out like things that are intentionally deceptive, right? Like
Yeah.
intentionally trying to in many ways just um skim off other people's successful work, right? Like we don't like that. There's no advantage for us. I think we were in an unsustainable spot where searching for the most sort of played islands generally would return 50 plus like identical islands, like with identical description, identical thumbnails, or very, very close to identical. That's not that's not if we just took a player lens, that's not in anybody's interest to sort of unintentionally end up on a, a like a copycat of something. Like it might not even be the same gameplay, but because of thumbnail, because of description, like title, like how would you know which one is the correct one? So
Mm.
we're trying to be. I don't know. We needed something like quickly to sort of push everything up high and say, okay, if you want to be successful in the ecosystem, then make a name for yourself. Like make a name that people can recognize, make a thumbnail that people can recognize. That's how that's how it works in any other gaming ecosystem. So like we're gonna enforce like if you get too close to an established thumbnail. But we have a lot of legacy problems, like you said. How do we know which who is first on the particular thumbnail? Like that's a very real problem that we're trying to solve basically one island at a time right now. But the alternative was that we would make it so lax it didn't matter, right? Like where
Mm.
all you need to change with 3 pixels in the corner, and we would just say, well, I guess it's not the same thumbnail anymore. That wouldn't work either. So
It's,
I don't know, it's a little clumsy right now, and we're doing our best to just listen and try to react to this and being open about, you know what, like this, we know we're not in a great state, but on the backside of it, like my opinion is that this was a needed step to push islands from each other essentially and say you like make something unique
yeah.
and enforceable, and you will be able to absolutely believe that you can keep that space, right? Which I think is the most important thing as a game developer, is when I've made something and people come to see my island, I don't want them to accidentally end up on my neighbor's island that is half as good as what I did. They never worked hard to get there. All these like all the basic things, right? So this is this is the approach to do that. And I think you're gonna see more in that direction, squat on top of each other like they've been doing. So
It's great. A little bit of growing pains, but I'm
it is
excited to
definitely a
see the
growing pain.
progress.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I hope people can bear with us as we do this. I think the result on the other side will be better for everyone.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about another thing that's a little bit controversial right now is the adjustment to Epic Picks. This is seemingly awesome, at face value, where there's these four large tiles, you hover over it, there's like a trailer that gets involved, there's a potential trigger to discovery and home bar, and even the Fortnite news tab. But there's also a difference on the community side, that felt difference is being communicated, of kind of the frustrations of rejections. There's like this pressure with Epic Picks because it's a surefire way to get your game in the hands of players outside of the algorithm. And then, of course, like waiting to hear back from Epic Picks. We had an Epic Pick that just got back to us. It was like 4 months ago. And then, we get random experiences where some do get selected, but it seems like the queue is super large, that we have like a Christmas game in summer and it feels a little weird. Could you kind of break us through like why you guys adjusted Epic Picks, and why you would argue that our current Epic Picks is going to be more efficiently helpful to our creators that are subscribing to trying to use it as a way to get players to play their game?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the why we changed it is because we believe it is really important to the ecosystem. We believe that it helps grow the types of content that are able to find success across Discover, across Fortnite, expose players to new types of content that they may otherwise not have seen or not have played because they only play one type of thing over and over again. So it plays a lot of really important roles, and I think honestly it's been pretty underserved for the past year or two, and it was very due for an update. And we've sort of like ideated or brainstormed multiple different versions and sort of thrown them out. And I think we kind of took a step back and we sort of simplified things. And then we said, what exactly do we want this to do and where do we want it to live? And I think this is the first step there. All that said, I think the fact that there are islands in the queue, or sort of like, between application and hearing back taking anywhere from like 4 to 6 months, I think that's like a total failure on our part. And so we are all like in the process of sort of auditing the full timeline of content. We get the initial application, where it gets reviewed at different stages, and then where the like email acceptance, rejection, and featuring actually happens. And our goal here is actually to get back to creators with sort of like an SLA of, hey, this is the amount of time that we expect to take. This is what you should expect. And if you don't hear back within this time, like reach out to us, because it means, maybe something happened basically. But like going forward, that's where we want to be. We're not there right now. But I think like we owe that to you. I think no one should have to wait like 6 months to hear back on their application. I just don't think that works for the pace of our ecosystem. And so again, there's a little bit of the transition pain here as well, where like it's new. I think it's exciting. I think we're seeing really great initial results from it. But we have this really long kind of backlog that we have to clean up, and we have to go through it and figure out kind of like how we move forward. And so we're working on like what that is going to look like, and we'll send out some messaging, hopefully very soon, just to kind of help kind of re-clarify and solidify some of the process parts of it. Paul, I know you were like one of the people kind of actively going through that whole timeline. Like anything else you would add?
No, I would definitely echo all of your points. I think that like, especially with the updates and the desire to like draw a more clear link between like the content that we want to surface there, it just like highlights the need for a more streamlined process, in us working with you all, right? So like Joey mentioned, those SLAs, here's what you can expect, here's how we can make sure we hold up our end of the bargain, etc., and start featuring the best content as quickly as possible and be transparent throughout that whole process.
Great. Thank you guys for sharing that. And another question I kind of have is,
I think
breaking down.
Like, the tension is between like editorial content, like editorial picks, like recommendations for you, and the roles that you described before. And I think the balance between that, we're constantly tinkering with trying to get the balance right. Like this, what you're saying, like you have four larger tiles. Well, we're trying to say, well, like it's not about like featuring as many things as possible in the editorial role. Let's see if we can just make them have a little more weight, and make them be current. I mean, I think when we say SLA, I don't know if everybody like saying like the time it takes us to make a decision is just like unacceptably long, right? So I don't know what you have in mind, Paul, Joey, for how long it should take before you hear something. I think you should just say a number rather than just saying in the future we will say a number. But what's the aspiration here?
The aspiration is, on the order of like number of weeks or like single digit small months, but not 4, not 6. And I think like part
I
of the
think it's
work,
30 days. I think 30 days is like what we want to strive for, and Sax is putting us on the spot to commit
Is
to
that,
it.
yeah.
I
Which is
love
great. So thank you, Sax. Um,
it.
so sorry to everyone that I just committed to this, but I think like 30 days feels reasonable. It feels fair. Like, and if we can't hit that, or if we're finding like, hey, some of our systems like for whatever reason are failing, and it's going to take us a little bit longer to get there, I think that's okay too, and we'll just try to be transparent about that
Yeah.
process. The other thing that I will add, I wanted to just throw in here, like. We get a bunch of Epic Fix applications with very limited context or content in them, actually. So, like,
Mm.
for everyone that's watching, when you are applying, the more context you can put into your application, longer videos, more gameplay, more written descriptions of what you're doing, the easier it will be for us to kind of review and understand. I feel like we've actually had a bunch of different cases recently where we've had to reject islands because the only thing we have to go off of is like a really
Mm.
short video clip, and it's actually really difficult to sort of make a judgment call of like, is this worth playtesting? Because again, if we get 1,000, 2,000 applications, we can't play test every single island. So there needs to be sort of stages where stuff kind of gets dropped off. So I would just encourage everyone, add more content in when you're applying, and that will help and go a really long way.
Particularly like, I don't know, like the headline is innovative. Like that is
Mhm.
like that's what we're looking for. Innovative and using UEFN in ways that sort of expand what people think. Right. Like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. If we say when we see the video, I didn't know you could do that. Like that's kind of what you're going
Mhm.
for. And what
Well,
we're looking for more than anything in like going forward in Epic's pick, like even more so. So to Joey's point, information, videos, context really matters.
well, even in your doc, you even like call out specific devices that you want to innovate and use, or a theme of like a genre that you guys probably want to
Yeah.
pay attention to. So I think
That's what we're
like,
doing now, yeah, to try to like narrow it in a little bit more, just so people
yeah,
Yeah.
like, yeah,
I,
like we
I,
we've historically been against that, but I think I don't know, we're trying to see if this helps people sort of innovate in
mhm.
a particular direction, and when they come back to us, it's easier for us to understand what it is that's innovative about the game that we can see a video of.
Yeah, and I think we've shared this, and I want to just underline it here again because I don't know that everyone sees every single tweet, but like, the idea is not to only exclusively filter for that content. Like, we want to feature content we think is exciting, and if it falls outside of one of those specific genres, that's okay. But we're trying, like Zach said, we're kind of trying to narrow some of the direction at least a little bit, and just say, hey, like this is the shape, this is the type of content we're looking for the next time period, and that's going to change over time. Similarly with like the devices, it's not like we're applying a filter that says like must have this device, otherwise reject. Like that's not what we're
Yeah.
doing. It's more so like we want to see like people who are using those devices in interesting ways, and that would be great. But if you have if you have an island that you're really excited about, that's innovative and doing something different, certainly feel free to apply. And it doesn't mean that you're just automatically going to be rejected or excluded for any reason. It's more of like a guiding principle, and it's something that we're like, oh well, we think that this aligns with our device roadmap. We think that this aligns with some of the different like game collections that are coming into the ecosystem, stuff like that.
That's awesome. Thank you guys. Okay, so for context, for those that are watching, I have so many questions from the community, and we won't be able to tackle all of them, unfortunately, in the short amount of time that we have for this stream, but I'm sure more to come. But I did want to kind of talk about a topic that I think a lot of players have an experience of, that I'm curious of your guys' thought of this balance between for you and curated content. Epic Picks is more curated, right? Like you guys decide this gets a spotlight. The algorithm kind of decides some of these rows, and you can like be strategic towards putting stuff in that way. But to a player, somebody who's just trying to find things that they love, um, historically, there are algorithms that serve that. Like Netflix, I think, is a great example here, where when you start liking things or disliking things, your algorithm starts to find a shape, and you start to find things that you love quicker. Do you guys have any thoughts on or any inspiration from other platforms that are doing search the way that you want discovery to function, or is Fortnite so unique that it has to have something else to it to make sense of how you curate that content to players?
I'm going to let Paul jump on the first stab at this because this is really squarely in his area, but I'll add context after.
Yeah, sure. Starting from like a technical perspective, I think that Fortnite is incredibly unique in like a lift and shift out of Spotify or Netflix or some of the other like big platforms that have a slightly different type of content. It's not a perfect one-to-one. Like we do have our own set of challenges with kind of what's available in the ecosystem, the fact that it's, games are very different than other types of media in general. Like speaking purely technically, at a high level, I think that like there's absolutely inspiration from all those other platforms that we pay attention to all the time. Like my personal background is like largely in music. I can't open Spotify without like thinking about what the Discover alternative, Fortnite Discover alternative is for any one thing that I interact with, right? So it's like it's something that we keep an eye on. But the content's definitely different. The ecosystem is special in its own way. And we are kind of trying to find that balance of like keeping our own goals and our own cards that we're playing with in mind, while also looking to other folks for inspiration who are like doing this very, very well.
The one or two things I would add, because you mentioned it at the beginning, sort of the balance between For You and editorial is like, I think something For You does really well is it helps us with the scale of our ecosystem. Like the newest version of Epic's Picks can only show 4 islands. If we were to sort of editorialize a bunch of our top rows, we'd be stuck with anywhere between 15 to 20 islands that we could show players at any given time. And it just like, it doesn't work with how many people are trying to build and like, exist within this ecosystem. And so For You actually is really effective at getting us to show a lot of content to players. And I think that there's a ton of headroom for us to make that better. I think that right now we feel like it's presenting a lot of sort of the same types of recommendations of like, oh, I just played something and here's something similar to it. I think that is like a V0, V1 version, and like we have aspirations to make that feel a lot better, so that it actually feels like it's learning from the different things that you're playing. It's taking into account like, oh, you played this for a lot, you clearly liked it, versus you played this for 2 minutes and then you left and you clearly didn't like it. And so we want to sort of like help guide the algorithm to a point where, we're actually finding you net new content that you didn't know about, that you love and you're excited about playing. That is absolutely the end goal. And I don't think we're there yet. I think we are kind of like slowly baby stepping our way there and sort of testing increments as we go. And then we're working on some sort of like larger new models that we want to scale out testing for as well.
I'm curious, Joey, like you had mentioned like, utilizing it to the player. There's a lot of tools out there on other platforms like thumbs down or like not showing a player count, or you guys even had it in rows where you could see the next tile so you knew that you could swipe to the 6th spot or whatever, which is like the coveted, frustrating content creator spot of being on that 7th area, because you're like, you see the player difference of being like in formal discovery versus like being in that other like side tab. But I think because it's just an arrow now, it's a little bit more confusing. Are there anything that you guys are actively working on currently that would help that discovery and help like being curated to the player different from another player?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just we've seen a lot of the feedback around the view all option versus the horizontal scroll, and so we've kind of been digging into that a little bit lately, just data wise, and trying to get a sense for impressions for islands in that 1 to 6 spot compared to the like let's say 7 to 12 or something. Before and after we made some of these changes, I don't think we know for sure, and I think we want to maybe start experimenting with a little bit. But I do think that we actually saw a pretty immediate increase to like the aggregate impressions content was seeing in that like 7 to 12 spot. We just generally found that players were not scrolling horizontally very much in the old version of the system, and that like the new version, I recognize that it's still pretty painful. Like I still think that there's a pretty big drop off in the players that would click view all and see the full list. but we're actually seeing that content get more impressions than players who were scrolling horizontally before. And I think there's a bunch of different reasons for that. And so I did want to just like, it's something that we're looking into for sure. We hear the feedback on it, and we want to make sure that it actually is the right decision for players. And so you might see us A/B testing around that as well, just to kind of like help validate it, so that we're not just doing like not just looking purely at impressions data. So I think that that's kind of in the works to answer your question immediately. But Paul, I don't know if there's anything else you would add more on like the personalization side.
Yeah, I mean, I like going back to the comment on curating per player, right? Like it's not one player, it's so many players, and the ability to like curate at scale is personalization, which overall is like an area that we're um, super interested in and investing in heavily. So it's like I view the like being on the 7, 8, 9 spot as like you should be on those players' recs, right? And you shouldn't be like fighting on the fringes there of the individual algorithmic rows, but rather like you should just be delivered straight to the audience that is most likely to resonate with you from the beginning.
Yeah. I think the what is we have a lot of different goals that, like with recommendations. One is that we regionally have very different tastes. So one of the things I'm really like I think is going really well, like is with the current approach, when we look at a top 10 by region, like Middle East versus Brazil versus whatever, that there's like heavy regional taste now. So like the top 10 looks very different for each region, which is huge for us because that means like sub communities can now form. Content creators in those areas can focus on people that they intimately relate to, and they can find an audience like that. So it was very important for us to get to a point where we start seeing regional taste sort of diverge, and you can become a regional creator and still be successful. Now the next thing is like we just heavily swing like when you there are days where all that's in my for you is tycoons. And that's because the last whatever number of islands I played were tycoons, and we just going, I guess all he likes is tycoons now. Well, it's not really true. My total play history would show like, no, I like all these. Like this is the total of who is me. And by just showing me tycoons, you're clearly showing me you don't know me, right? Which is when I snip it and send it to Paul and Joey and tell me like fix it. So which is really I think all of us are players, and all of us like feel this on our own bodies, and all of us feel like we could do better at finding unique content that we would resonate with. So there's a I don't know, it's like a hunt. Right now we're very excited about like sequencing, essentially saying like instead of just predicting around what I like use instead like a what comes next, similar to what a Netflix would do. Um on like what is what is sort of the predicted next island you would want to play once you finish this, which might not be a tycoon even though it came from a tycoon, because that's just not what people like. So I think we're going to experiment with new types of algorithms, um, and continue to go in that direction. Because like I don't know, the work is never done. Like there's just simply too many islands that are coming in for us to do a good job of curating. That's not a good solution. Rows are limiting because like what really describes your unique game? We're asking for innovative features. Well, inherently you don't fit into any row then, like if you're innovative. So the for you row is the solution. It's just a matter of how can we turn insights about what I like into the recommendations in a real-time fashion.
Well, we're at the last minute mark, and just like every good Marvel movie, there's a post-credit tease, and I wanted to leave some opportunity for you guys to potentially tease something that is exciting that's coming to the future of Discovery, that maybe hasn't been shared about, that you might want to take a stab at. I got a try out here. The people want cool stuff. I'm not sure if you guys have anything that would be worth sharing in that regard.
I don't want to announce any new features or anything on here, and I can kind of echo some of the stuff we shared at Unreal Fest earlier this year. I think one thing that we're seeing a lot is like we continue to see benefits from like helping build that player creator relationship, and so we're continuing to try to like find ways to invest in surfacing content from like creators that you follow back to players, and sort of finding ways to put that more front and center in front of players, and kind of like so that they're aware of changes and that are things that are happening. One of the things I've been really excited about lately, and kind of we were talking about it earlier, is like I think that creators like driving their own sort of events or moments within the ecosystem is really powerful. And just like the tooling we have for creators right now is really limited for doing a lot of that. And so it's like, how do we connect some of the existing tools that we have with this desire, like from creators to basically build their own like massive, really exciting events that are sort of happening across the ecosystem, and do it in a way that's scaled and anyone can do it, and they can sort of like work through the pieces and the steps to say to their audience, hey, I have this thing coming up. It's happening in 5 days. And then when it happens, your audience knows about it and it's easy to find and they're excited to jump in. And then if it gets really big, it gets amplified to the rest of the ecosystem. Like I feel like that stuff is all really exciting for me. And I also don't feel like we're too far off from it. And so that's what we're trying to kind of figure out, what are some of the pieces there that could start unlocking that little bit of like a flywheel of creators kind of like building more exciting moments across the ecosystem.
Awesome.
Someone
Anybody else got anything, or should we just end it there?
I don't know. I think Sax has signed me up for enough work on this already, so I got to clear my calendar as is.
We're gonna have a talk about the 30-day turnaround. It's just like,
well, thank you guys. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to set this up on a regular monthly basis. Really excited for the next one. But if you have if you're watching this and you have any other creators that you want to vouch for to be a part of these types of conversations, don't hesitate to @them out there whenever these go live. And then, of course, like the topics that you guys have been choosing have been very incredible. So thank you so much for doing that and putting that on. I really appreciate your guys' time. And that's about it for the stream. So we're going to end it there. Hope you guys have a great rest of your evening and afternoon. And thank you if you're watching from home. Appreciate you guys chatting with us and giving us your feedback. Much more to come down the line, I'm sure.
Thanks, everyone. This was great.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.